Well, hi everyone. Welcome to Adobe Live here at Adobe Max. My name is Chris Hansen and I'm a Senior Solutions Consultant in Sydney, Australia. So I've flown all the way here to be live and I'm extremely excited. And with me today, I'm joined by owner and principal designer at Kessa, Toren Reaves. Welcome, Toren.
Hey, how are you?
Good, man. How's your Max been so far?
It's been wild. It's really cool seeing everybody like in person. Like I'm so used to seeing everybody from like the chin up. So like meeting all these creatives has been really encouraging.
Yeah.
Like just kind of talking to people about their story and a bit more about their medium. Like there's so many experts here on the show floor. I've never felt like more like invigorated to just go out and create.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you just want to get out and meet new people and just understand what they're doing as well, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, just so perhaps people don't really know who you are, what you do, maybe just give us a little bit of a rundown on that.
Yeah, so I started my own design agency back in 2020 after losing my job due to COVID. Like right when lockdowns happened, I got let go of from a tiny startup, and I always wanted to do creative. And so once I was out on my own, I was like, you know what, I'm just going to teach myself how to use all the Adobe Creative Cloud products just one by one, and things just kind of took off. So now day to day, I do a lot of photography, a lot of apparel design, and editorials, and that's the stuff I'm super passionate about. It's really hard for me to kind of discern like the different disciplines, because to me it all feels like the same thing, just because it's always been just me working on a lot of stuff. And here I am at Max, really excited to use Express and to show a little bit about my workflow and how I take a lot of the creative that I make, you know, using some of the other apps and bringing it into Express so that it's ready to go for like a social post.
That's fantastic, and
Yeah.
I'm really excited to see what you got for us, especially with Express. Just a few shout outs. Hi Toren and Chris, that's from Oliver. Umacorn Browsers, Toren and Chris, how you going? So a couple of questions. You mentioned
Sure.
COVID and how it affected your work, but if I'm right in saying you're self-taught, right?
Yeah.
So can you just take me through that? Explain how you became to this you know, the kind of self-taught area, and what did you want to do in comparison to what you're doing now?
Yeah, so you know, when I started my agency, I reached out to some apparel brands and was like, hey, I think I'm gonna do this on my own, like start like a, you know, like an ad agency. If you want to come on board, like that'd be super cool, but if not, like I totally get it. And they all said yes. And so I kind of hit the ground running with a handful of clients that like needed creative like immediately. So you know, if I started in March of 2020, by April I was producing my first photo shoot using my cell phone and then Lightroom on mobile, because I'd never held a camera before. And then that campaign took off. And then after that campaign did really well, I did another, and then soon they were asking me to design apparel, and then I was designing apparel and modeling in it, and then taking the photos for it, and then taking all that creative and managing their social feeds. So a lot of brands were relying on me to do like a full suite of services, and I was just teaching myself, okay, how do I use Lightroom for this, or how do I design a vector in Illustrator? How do I, you know, plate an editorial in InDesign? How do I use Photoshop to do certain things I can't do in Lightroom? Or how do I make a video using Premiere or After Effects? And so just kind of one client task at a time.
Yeah.
I ended up like leaning on one app from the Creative Cloud after another. But at the end of the day, you know, because so many of the impressions were going out in social feeds, I really did lean on Express. At the time, actually, it was Spark, to like take that creative, and especially for aspect ratios, kind of get it out there so that it was like ready to be client facing, or set it out into the wild, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to talk more about the aspect ratios and social and things like that. But in terms of Express being a new product, and we did see a sneak peek of it in the keynote yesterday, how would you explain to people what it is and what it actually does?
Yeah, so Express is a really great tool if you're just trying to get your feet wet when it comes to design, because there are all these different elements in it, like as a platform. Like there are some photo, like very light photo editing tools in here. There are some light vector art editing tools in here. There's the aspect ratio cropping, and then you can use the post scheduler in here to like push it out into the wild. And so if you're just getting started, it's a great place because you can kind of dip your toes into a lot of different disciplines in a way that's very approachable.
Yeah, I like the very approachable side of it.
Yeah.
You know, anyone can kind of pick it up and start using it. So in terms of your business, right, how has it enabled your business to create content faster?
Oh man, just having different pages and being able to iterate very quickly. Being self-taught, I kind of relied on the fact that, you know, I really have a lot of confidence in my taste. Like I always tell people, like I've got great taste, so if I give myself enough options, I can pick something from that pile that I think works.
Yeah.
And so having pages and being able to tweak the logo on option A and then tweak the logo on option B and then to step back and look at all of it and go, okay, what's working here for me has been huge. Instead of having to send it out to somebody else or wait for approval, like I can kind of do a lot of that drafting and ideating right here on this platform. And just because it's digestible doesn't mean that the work that you do in here is any less valuable.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of gatekeeping when it comes to design or content creation. And one of the things like I'm hoping to do or hoping to have always done is, you know, try to bring that gatekeeping down a little bit and just, you know, demonstrate like you can do world-class work using this tool. Like that's really what it's for.
Amazing. And
Yeah.
I love what you said there about having great taste. I mean, I've seen your work. It's pretty impressive, man.
Thank you. Yeah, I've got a funky little style, but you know, if you get it, then you know we've got a good vibe going.
Yeah, absolutely. So why don't we jump in? What do you got for us today? What are you going to take us through?
Yeah. So today I figured I would do some. Like I love like announcement posts and kind of sharing, you know, what I'm doing and what I'm up to, but doing it in a way that's a little bit more esoteric. And so I'm going to take a photo from a shoot I actually did earlier this year for an Adobe live stream and kind of use it to make a social post in different aspect ratios. So I'm just going to drag and drop it into here and hopefully it uploads quickly. If not, then we got ourselves a little issue.
There we go. We'll get there.
We'll get there.
Live's always fun, right? There we go.
Awesome, yeah. And then I'm not really sure if I want it to take up the whole space, so on the background, I'm gonna replace the color with a solid color. And
So-
I love, oh yes, no, by all means.
I was just going to say, so as you're doing that, I notice you're accessing the right panel. So the panels seem contextual, right?
Yes, yep.
Yeah.
So if I'm clicking on the background, it'll bring up a lot of features to edit the background. And if I go ahead and click on the frame or the layer of the photo, then like you said, it dynamically responds to what I'm clicking on and trying to edit. And so we've got these anchor points here, like these little circles. And so I'm going to drag this to expand the image. And then I'm just going to scroll on down a little bit on the page, if it lets me. And if not, that's okay. We're going to bring it right up here.
We'll get it.
I might end up changing the background color to black, just so I've got the contrast.
Yeah.
And what I'm going to do now is do a bit of, you know what? We're going to duplicate this layer actually.
So by clicking on it, you have a lot of functionality that pops up on the side. Okay,
Yep.
so there you've duplicated it.
Yep, I'm going to duplicate it, and then on this top image, I am going to remove the background.
Oh. So it's just a simple click, right?
Yep.
So, little story. Way back when, I used to work in media. I used to get the pen tool and deep etch out people. That was literally a job for me.
You're a trooper.
I am, man. And it took me a very long time. And you just did it in one button. That kind of makes me a bit sick.
It's amazing. I feel like when I was first, you know, trying to get my teeth wet in Photoshop, like using like the lasso tool by hand or by cursor was a challenge. So to be able to do that on the fly, and there's so many you know, creatives who just need to say like, okay, I need to just remove the background from this image, but I want to do it quickly in a way that doesn't necessarily require something as robust as Photoshop. And so this is a great tool for that, and it's a pretty ubiquitous need when you're creating. And you're probably wondering why I've decided to duplicate the layers and then remove the background. So sometimes I like having this effect where I'm going to go into my libraries, and I did some graphic work beforehand in Illustrator, but I'm going to import it on in. If you have a graphic, you can actually save it to your libraries, and it's all synced because it's an Adobe
Well, I was going to
product.
ask you that. So you can still access your Creative Cloud libraries from within Express?
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay.
And so I have this Max logo, but I don't necessarily want it to be completely over the subject here. I kind of want to share the space a little bit. And so I'm going to go into the layers panel.
Yeah.
And because I removed the background on the first layer, but at the same size as before, now I've got this effect where it seems like, where it appears like the logo is in the image, but behind the subject, but it's
depth,
actually not.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
depth.
that's wicked.
And we can still edit it, which is great. And I'm going to keep going with some more of the logos from the same library.
Yeah, and while you're doing that, I'm just going to take a step back in terms of what you actually just did. By the way, you're in the browser, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is Adobe Express in the browser, and you've accessed libraries, which also access obviously across all the other applications, but you already had something pre-built, or the logo, you had some imagery, so you've done a number of steps really quickly, might I add.
Well, it's great, and one of the things I love the most about Express, because I work with a lot of students who are in the at-risk youth, and they don't necessarily have access to some of the higher-end tools that a lot of us designers use, and so to have something that's browser-based goes a long way in tearing down some of the barriers to entry when it comes to design. So you don't have to have a $4,000 PC to make something that feels thoughtful and curated and really bespoke to whatever your needs are.
Can you talk a little bit more about the work that you did? You mentioned you work a lot with at-risk youth. What exactly do you actually do for that?
Yeah, so I was fortunate enough to teach a course in Rochester with a group of students from Edison Tech about storytelling through apparel design. And we really went through the ideating process all the way through making content for social. So we put together a mood board in Express, and then we started trying to figure out what's the vibe that we want to go for. And then we took that mood board and we really went through what about the items on this mood board are speaking to us, and how can we incorporate that into a vector that we eventually put onto a t-shirt. And so once we all kind of figured out what that was, we did a design in Illustrator and we made vector art using that tool. Then we placed it on a mock-up that we made in Photoshop. And then eventually, once we had the mock-up made, I had all of their garments produced. I just went out and bought them and had somebody manufacture the pieces that they designed, and then we went and did a photo shoot and used Lightroom to color grade, and then we imported all those photos into Express, and we ended up doing exactly what we're doing now.
Amazing.
Which is turning it into something that can go live for social.
That's wicked. That's just so awesome to hear stories like that, and we've heard a lot of stories like that throughout Adobe Max. We've got a question here from Elizabeth Mock. What are you most excited about in Adobe Express?
Currently, I love Pages. It's a relatively new feature to Express, but it goes a long way for people like me who can be kind of indecisive as to where I place things. So maybe I'm feeling confident about having this top vector kind of crop onto the corner, but maybe I just want to see what it might look like over here on this side, or even behind the subject. The absolutely breathtaking Lex, who's a great friend of mine, and putting it behind and saying, okay, how does this compare to what I was doing before? And you can actually click now and view all pages. And somebody like me who's self-taught and doesn't have an education in graphic design or editorials, I can just look and say, okay, what's working the most for me compositionally? So
when you set that up, do you actually have to click page 1, page 2? Is that how that works?
So for this view, you don't have to do that. There's actually a button which is view all. Yeah. If I want to just go back and forth, I can click on the bottom and do page 1,
that's brilliant.
And then do page 2.
See, that really speeds up the iteration process, really, right? And obviously the selection process. And like you said, being a visual person, the ability to see that in multiple pages is fantastic.
Yeah, so I'm just going to go back and see, okay, what else about this is working? I'm from a street in Rochester called Thurston Road, and it's unfortunately got a pretty bad rap. And so when I was doing this photo shoot for Adobe Live earlier this year, it was really important to me, as somebody who grew up on that street, to represent it on my own terms and kind of show the beauty in that part of Rochester and my neighborhood. And so it's an absolute blessing to be able to share it with the whole world. You can see the street sign, and Lex came with me to literally that corner that I grew up on, And now that it's here on the Adobe stage, it's just like mind-boggling to be like, I can't even believe it. But yeah, it's really, really cool to be able to represent my hometown in such an authentic way.
Yeah, awesome, man, and thank you for sharing that with us. We've got a question from Marianne. If you're posting to social media directly from Adobe Express, how do you include hashtags? This is a good question. And is there a way to add a clickable link in your image or template?
So I'm not sure about the clickable link as of right now, but if you're adding hashtags to the post, you can, so once this is set, you can go to the content scheduler.
Oh, I wanted to talk about this, so this is probably a good segue into that.
If it lets me, yeah, so here's the little icon up in the top corner.
So this is a scheduling system right in Adobe Express.
Yep.
And it allows you to hook up multiple social media accounts, yeah?
Yes, and apparently it's untethered my Instagram account, but if we were using it, I could have a caption and say, if I can type properly, spelling is a challenge. So, Thurston Road, we in here.
Nice.
And then hashtag 585, because that's the area code.
Nice. So, and this is scheduling, right? So you can pick a day that it goes out, a time, so and then essentially you could do like a week's worth of work in one day and schedule that out, so that just goes out.
Yeah. So if you're somebody who has a handful of clients and managing their content calendars, it can be a lot, and like remembering at any given time, like, oh, I've got to post this for client A, and then oh, I also have to post this for client B. To be able to sit down on like a Sunday morning and just kind of go, okay, let me walk through all the stuff I've got coming up this week and make sure it's scheduled properly is huge.
Yeah, and the fact that you can do it across multiple social media channels is great. Aspect ratios as well. Yeah. So I'd really like to dive into how you would convert one piece of work from one aspect ratio to another.
Yeah, so let's pop out of this. We can get out of the scheduler. If I go back to my project.
It's a tab.
Oh, perfect. So we're back in my project. If I wanted to change the size, I could go over to the corner and click resize, and then go, okay, I want to do this for, I love Instagram portraits. Like, I love this aspect ratio. And so it resizes it with everything still in place, and maybe I just click all the elements and scale like uniformly. But because this was like a widescreen image, I'm actually going to play with it a little bit more. So I'll click on this, but I'll revert back to what it was like beforehand. Perfect. And now I might take these two layers, scale these to fill up more of the screen. Maybe the whole thing, I don't know. Yeah,
I love how you're doing this on the fly. I can see your mind ticking.
Yeah. So here's Lex. And then now we also still have all these elements. So I'm going to put this in between the two layers. Yeah.
As you're doing that, question from Hiba, can you post reels from Express?
Yes, you can. That's the feature that I think they're doing more with video. I don't know how much I'm allowed to say, but it's really exciting. There's a lot coming down the pipeline when it comes to features when it comes to stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a latest product, so there'll be a lot more features to come through, and we're excited. I mean, look what you're doing right now, real quick. I got a question from you. So, when in terms of your company, Kesa, can you explain what the word actually means and how did you come up with that name?
So I've been doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu since 2010, and Kesa is like one of my favorite positions. And when I was a white belt just starting out, it was just this move that like made sense to me, and I was catching black belts with it, like right out of the gate. And so I think if you're in any industry long enough, you kind of start to come across things that don't necessarily feel right. And so when I branched off on my own, I was like, whatever I do professionally, creatively, personally, it's going to make sense and speak to me the way that move does. Wow. And I didn't realize at the time how liberating that would be. And so I've said no to things that don't feel right, and I've said yes to a lot of things that felt really right, but maybe the financial aspect wasn't necessarily as present as I think we would like it to be. But chasing my passions and doing the work that I'm really, really into has opened doors, and I'm not very like money oriented, so I've done a lot of stuff that's spoken to me, and it's pushed me creatively, like to honor the project I'm working on, to make sure that I'm doing it at the best possible level that my skill set at the time could do. And I think I've grown tremendously as an artist in a short amount of time because of that modus operandi.
Mate, that's a great explanation of that, and I love how it's got something to do with what you know. It's a passion of yours, what you do for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Okay, Elizabeth Mock, can you handle multiple accounts on the same platform on Adobe Express, or can you only do one per social media channel?
No, you can handle multiple, and then you can also have like brands set up. I don't have anything here currently, just because I've got a handful of clients, and I want to respect any NDAs that I have. But when I do have them tethered in here, like yes, you can have a handful.
Okay. And Judy from the Max Chat asks, how did you move the image you imported into the background of the picture?
So there are a couple ways that you can do it. So if I make a new page, and we'll do the same size, you can drag and drop an image. We'll use another one of the Mighty Lex.
So you're just dragging and dropping, right? Just
from a folder. But if you have like a Lightroom account, you can link it with your Express and then import directly from Lightroom. So I can drag it, and you can see right now it's not a part of the background, but if I highlight it, if it clicks for me, sorry to everybody else. Okay, so yeah, once I have it clicked, I can do add to background, and here we go.
Nice.
And we can also scale it in this view as well.
So that's now a background image?
Yes.
So then what's the difference between a background image and just having an image set?
Oh, so like having an image that's not tethered to the background? Yeah, so if I remove it from the background and I just want to stretch it.
Oh, I see, okay.
That's another technique, which I really do love doing, but if you have a background color, so say I want to have my actual background be, we'll go with yellow.
Oh, I see, yeah.
And then I have this image over it and I have this background color, I can actually decrease the opacity and give it like this new look and feel. So now like all the highlights and midtones and shadows kind of have this new warmth to them. And so I do this a lot sometimes, like as like a shorthand, like getting it all to kind of come to a place of parity in Lightroom can take a lot of time, but if I decide like on the fly, like we did just now, that I want to give a look and feel of something, but I don't want to necessarily hop back into Lightroom and spend the proper amount of time editing it, I can just do it real quickly here.
You know what, I was just noticing, you could even do what you did similar, like duplicate that image and then have the foreground image not affected by the background, just have the background that yellow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So you can do that now?
Yep, and I can do remove background. We are designing.
Hey?
Yeah.
We're designing, exactly.
We're designing. And so now once I, whoops.
So, question, where did that go? How long does it take, this is from Zhang, how long does it usually take for you to work on big projects?
I mean, it depends. Big is a pretty open term, so sometimes you just kind of have one of those epiphanies creatively, and everything just like makes like immediate sense. You just know, and you just chase it down. Other, projects take a little bit more massaging, but this being able to have a bunch of pages open at once really cuts it down, because I can look at things that are editable in real time, and the aspect ratio that is probably true to where most of the impressions of the creative are going to be, which is like on mobile. And so I can hop into my mobile app of this and then also look at it on my phone and still have access to all the same editing tools. So before I post anything live for either myself or a client, I almost always use Express to do that, like that last check to go, okay, like how does this actually translate on a phone?
On a phone, yeah, that's interesting. As well, not only on a phone, but it's even on tablets, right? So Express is on an iPad. You can do the same thing you're doing here on an iPad as well.
You sure can.
What we found quite interesting is there's a lot of mobile creators out there, and they're creating not only on phones but also on tablets, which is incredible that we can have these devices now that are so powerful.
So powerful.
That can do this sort of stuff. I'd love for you to talk to me about the left-hand panel. So you got text, you got photos, you got shapes. I suppose, like, starting something from scratch. Express is quite vast when it comes to assets inside of it, isn't it?
Yeah. So if you have the Creative Cloud, sorry, I'm like wrapped up in.
I know,
this.
I love it. I'm just interrupting your,
No,
your
not at all.
creative process right here.
So if you don't have your own photography, but you still want to have, a similar look and feel, you can go over to Photos, and you have access to the entire Adobe stock inventory, and there are so many incredible artists contributing to this stock feature. So if I just type in, let's say, skateboards. I love skateboards, but I don't really skate that well. But I love the vibe.
The design and everything.
I just love the
idea
feel,
of it,
like the openness and the ambition to try something new, like knowing that if you mess up or when you mess up, like it's not gonna necessarily feel too great, but still going for it nonetheless. Like I think there's a lot to be learned from that. So yeah, we'll do a new page.
So to have that at your fingertips, like literally, so you've got right-hand panel, contextual when it comes to assets and imagery and logos. Left-hand panel is kind of like searchability, if you will.
Yeah.
To find exactly what it is you need to build out creative. That's a great shot.
Yeah. Whoever did this needs a pat in the back because this is great. I love this. And so if you wanted to kind of make this a little bit more your own, like I love the effects features. I'm obsessed with Duotone, and like I've got my own set of like favorite colors. Like I love this semi off-white, which is F5 repeated, and then I have like a brand yellow that I'm obsessed with.
So are you saving those, like so you can quick access them?
Yep, you can save brand colors, but if you want to just have something on the fly, you can also go in and put in your own hex code.
Oh, wicked. Question from the chat. Sarah from the Max chat asked, do keyboard shortcuts work in Adobe Express? That's a great question.
A few of them do for sure. Like if I do like Control C, or I don't know what the Apple equivalent would be. Like if I want to copy paste or yeah, I know that those two work. I know that when you're in Illustrator, if you want to like scale something but have it keep the same aspect ratio, you hold down Shift. I don't know. I haven't really done that enough in here to tell you. But we can try right now.
Why not? As you're doing that, is there a limit to how many posts you can schedule to the calendar? That's from Michael.
Not that I'm aware of, no.
So Michael, you could pretty much plan out like a month's worth of work. That's if you can create a month's worth of work in a couple of days or so. But essentially, the scheduling system is pretty powerful when it comes to that sort of process.
No, it's great.
That looks awesome. We are live creating, guys.
We are live creating. We're artists.
Yeah, artists right here. And now, so this is the logos, right? So the brand.
Yep. So every brand that you set up in Express, you can import your own logos, which is great. Although, if you're working with like an apparel brand, you're going to end up probably leaning more on like the libraries feature in Illustrator if you're having clients send you a bunch of graphic art. But if they have like a firm like set of logos, you can just import it right into here, and it's its own separate thing. You don't have to go dig it out of your libraries. And then when you click on any one of them, it puts it in what's typically a logo space. So it knows like, okay, like top right corner, certain size, you can move it around.
So you don't need to get the rulers out.
No, the Snap to feature is great.
Yeah, so it's automatic snap.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, that's great.
I'm having a blast right now.
I know, I might just let you go.
No, this is great.
All right, while you're doing that, is Express primarily used for social media, or what other departments could use this and for what?
Even just your own personal branding. If you wanted to use this for other things, I've created artwork in here that I ended up having printed out onto a design. Like I'm pretty sure that the export is like 300 DPI, which is plenty for most online printing services, which is what I use mostly for like my own little merch shop, which is all just print on demand. So you absolutely could use it for more than just posting to social. You could do stuff for like your LinkedIn, which is like a little bit more professional. Like all those aspect ratios are in here. It's really, really great in that regard.
Let's say you're a non-creative. Let's say I work for a corporate organization. I'm in marketing, perhaps. Marketing tends to be creative. Perhaps
you're the one uncreative person in the marketing team.
I'm the one uncreative person in the marketing team.
Happens too much.
Yeah. So if I were to pick up Express, what would I do? How could I do that? Is it built for people like me?
It's built so that everybody can have access to it and to make tweaks in a way that isn't like destructive. So like if you came in and you had access to being able to edit something, you're not going to irrevocably damage something forever if you go and you rescale the logo. I saw a comment come in that said that the logo for Kesa is flipped upside down.
Yeah, I was going to get to that.
Yeah, it actually is, and so like my logo, I call it like the dark slide version of Kesa because it's flipped, and if you're familiar with skateboarding, like a dark slide's when you're grinding with the grip tape face down.
Yeah.
And so I was really looking into like old skateboarding VHSs and DVDs from like the late 90s and early 2000s, like when I was starting Kesa, just for that grit and vibe of like LA skateboarders, and so that's why my logo's flipped. So whoever noticed that,
props.
I see you.
Props to you.
I see you.
That was Dennis. Thanks, Dennis. So Tiffany asked, what types of files can I open in Express? Can I open Illustrator and Photoshop files from my Creative Cloud libraries?
So if you add like any of your Illustrator files to the libraries, you can access those. You've got access to your Lightroom photos, which you can also sync with your Photoshop. So by proxy of that, I know that you can. There are so many features in here. Like if you have like a very consistent workflow, like I'm learning stuff like this week about like more of the features that Express has and that are coming down the pipeline, but I'm pretty sure that you can open PSDs, and I know for sure that you can open like the AI files if they're added to your library.
Nice. So I want to talk a couple more questions on here. What are the 3 key features of Adobe Express that have helped your business create content faster?
Pages, libraries, and integration with Lightroom, so that I don't have to export from Lightroom and then upload, and then I'm like very particular about certain things. So like if I can make a quick edit on the fly like I did here, then I'm totally for I cannot stop editing. I'm totally for...
I love it.
Like if I make a quick edit on the fly like I did here, like I'm totally for just kind of keeping that global edit, but if I wanted to do something like really niche, like maybe I wanted to remove the graffiti in the background here, or it said something obscene that I didn't catch until the last minute, being able to pop into Lightroom and remove it with the tools there, and then just kind of refresh it and having it reflect the changes right here in real time is pretty cool.
So could you take this piece of artwork right now into like Photoshop or Lightroom, like you said?
I could export this as a PNG and edit it there. I don't think the layers would be preserved, unless that's a feature that they've... Oh no, well I could do it as a PDF, so maybe, but I know for sure that you can export as a PNG, which is mostly how I export things.
Nice. What has been the benefit of transitioning your team to Adobe Express?
Just how ubiquitous it is and how approachable it is for almost everybody who comes to it. And when I'm collaborating with brands, like I really want them to feel empowered that their creative ideas will at least be tried out. And I know that sometimes the more individual, robust apps can be really intimidating and kind of discourage newcomers from voicing some of the changes that they want to see reflected in a project like this. And so being able to just hop on in a way that's approachable, like I said at the top, goes a long way in making people feel more confident. And then a lot of times people end up taking a template that I've made and really running with it.
You know what, that's a really good point, and you do bring up a good point, especially about creative professionals, because they might see this tool as, I don't really need to use that. But what if I am a creative professional and I use applications like Photoshop and Illustrator? Where would I use Express for that?
Where does it enter your workflow? I think for me, it really does enter right at that last crucial stage of just doing like a quick check, like does this work in the aspect ratio that I'm working in? Like does this work on mobile? Do I need to make like a last minute change? Like when I'm editing a photo in Lightroom or in Photoshop, I'm very reluctant to crop in there just because I want to keep the image as wide as possible. And I love being able, I think a lot of the times the real artwork that ends up going into the wild is kind of found in this last stage. Like I love having an aspect ratio that's really, really tight and then having a really large photo and having to discover like what part of this like works in this very confined area. And there have been so many times where I had a photo that I didn't think worked at the macro level when I could see everything, but maybe when I threw it in here, like I saw, a smaller element like somebody's hand or the expression that they were making, like once I stretched it out so that it fit this aspect ratio, I was like, oh man, like there's the art in this. Like maybe, you know, the other 80% of this photo was like just not good, but the 20% that like works that I'm seeing right now, right here, really, really works. And this is an example of this where Lex's expression, like if I don't think it would come through as concretely if I had it, you know, at a more traditional like widescreen aspect ratio, because this photo is so large. But being able to very easily stretch and crop is something that I really value.
That, you kind of gave us a little bit of an insight into your, you know, creative process, which is really interesting. But like in terms of inspiration, where do you get that from? You spoke about where you're from in Rochester, but is there anything else that inspires you to create? I'm
so inspired by the people I work with. Like if I'm doing portrait photography, like half the time it's just us kind of talking about their life story and getting to know them, and you know, really involving them in the creative process where like I'm showing them, like I'll turn my viewfinder on over to them and say like, hey, like how do you feel about these frames that we just took? And really taking their input in real time to kind of guide the rest of the photo shoot. And so once I get to the point where it's like, okay, I'm going back to Lightroom and I'm sitting down to edit these, it's like I have a lot of those lessons in mind already, and I'm really kind of tuned in to that, and I try to bring out, you know, the elements of authenticity that I spoke about with the subject. And Lex is somebody who like I just completely vibe with, and I knew as soon as I met her that like I wanted her to be the face of the brand and not me, like for all the apparel stuff that we were doing. So she just has this dynamic intensity that I just like, I love. Like whenever I'm doing photos with her or doing like a photo shoot with her, you can always tell like the gears are spinning at like 1,000,000 miles per hour. Like she's like so tuned into everything, and trying to bring that feeling into all the photos really is a challenge that I try my best to do. I don't know if I've ever done it, or done it justice, but you know, I wish everybody could meet her in person and just get that sense. But inspiration from the people I'm collaborating with is definitely huge for me.
I love that. So you're kind of feeding off creative talent, right? Which is really cool. All right, a couple of questions in the chat. Let's go with Sabunya. Does Express come with dark mode UI? Some of us are visionary impaired.
Oh, like does the UI have a dark mode? If it does, I'm not certain. I haven't used it, but which is a weird thing because like when I'm on Twitter or Instagram, I always flick on dark mode. But I think I've just kind of accepted Express as I've come to it. But I don't know if it does or not.
It's a good question, and I mean I think it could come down to your system. You know, settings when you have dark mode switched on for your Mac or your PC.
Oh yeah, like a global setting.
Yeah, it could just switch out like that. So you might want to give that a try.
Yeah, that's a great question.
It is a great question, definitely. So Elizabeth, you're asking a lot of questions, but I like it. Can you use pages to post to individual platforms at the same time?
Yes, yep, you can schedule all that out for different platforms. I'm sorry again that I don't have more of my social links linked up, but you have Pinterest in there, Instagram in there, Facebook in there, I believe TikTok in there, and a couple of, I've LinkedIn as well, and you can schedule them out for all the individual platforms or just a handful, and then just kind of publish like that, which is great.
Nice. There's a question up top earlier from Kwesi. Can you make positioning adjustments per social platform? That's a good question.
Like within the aspect ratio. So like maybe if I duplicated this page and then resized this to a different aspect ratio, like an Instagram story, I might have to do some tweaking, but I'm sure like once you set it up in the scheduler that you can use like an individual page like you said, and then have that go live.
Elizabeth, I'm a box full of questions. Good, keep them coming. All right, a couple more. What's the best way to use templates, and how would I set them up, and how would I share them? Yeah,
I mean, I don't know about a best way, but one way that I use them is like a launch point. So there are so many great artists in here. So if I go back to home, where like I'll look at something like this and go, okay, like I love the font placement here, and I love the vibe of this. So how can I put my own spin on it? Yeah.
So you've just found this in stock, right? Or
in the templates. I literally just went to the homepage and clicked it, and this is the first time I'm seeing it, but like I love this color of yellow. Hopefully it
awesome.
comes through. Yeah. And
Yellow's the theme. Yellow's the theme in
yellow,
this.
it is definitely a thing. And so I like to use these as launch points creatively or tonally.
That's great. So if you were to make changes to this, because this is an existing artwork, what perhaps on the fly, I'm putting you on the spot here.
No.
What could you do to this particular one?
So even though we decided that I love this yellow, which I'm just going to copy that hex code, maybe I want to use my own brand colors here.
Yeah.
And then this layer is on top, so I'm going to go to like the layers panel and just see, okay, maybe I put this down a layer, or I send this down a couple layers, and then click on these other elements, which hopefully it lets me click on. So yeah, like the star.
Yeah, I was just going to say, the fact that this is an already set up template that you can go in and essentially remix, right? You're creating your own version from that is incredible.
Yeah, and so maybe I don't want that star to be a solid fill, but I want it to be a border. And so now I've got this, and then I can change the border thickness, because I like a little weight with my borders. And I play around with the positioning.
Yeah.
Let's see what else. Oh yeah, here we've got this cellophane transparent, which I absolutely love. But sometimes clients, like, they get a little weird if you get a little weird. So sometimes I'll go, okay, like maybe I don't have this element in it because I know that my client is cool for the vibe, but they don't want to be too esoteric, or maybe it just bugs them for some reason, even though I love it.
Yeah.
And so I can take this and remove that element, or maybe I need to shift this around so that the changes that I did with the logos are reflected, and I just remove this element altogether, or I resize it.
It's a great photo, isn't it?
It's an awesome photo.
Just the perspective, I really like that.
So yeah, this is definitely this is a whole vibe.
So as you're doing that, how is creative collaboration important to you and your teams?
I mean, again, like I said about inspiration, like collaborating is vital to everything I'm doing. Or, I'm a huge proponent of people feeling like represented on their own terms, and I don't think I could do that if I wasn't listening and I wasn't allowing people to really express how they want to be represented. And so that kind of collaborative endeavor is crucial to the very like the core elements of my approach to design and content creation.
Awesome. So I think we're going to wrap it up very soon, but we've got one more question.
Yeah.
Adobe announced that Adobe Express will span over 43 million people in education and, of course, non-for-profit. What will that mean for creativity for the future?
Democratizing creativity, access to creative tools, the knowledge and the wisdom as to how to use them is really a huge passion of mine, and it's so good to know that that's shared with Adobe. And so having something like this that's browser based, like I said before, like it really does a lot to lower the barriers to entry when it comes to designing world-class content. Again, you don't have to have a $3,000 laptop or even a camera. You can rely on the stock photography here and really edit it to an extent where you're putting your own spin on it. And so I can't even overstate how important it is to get more people creating and having them be empowered and having the tools to do so.
I love that answer, mate. Absolutely democratizing creativity. I love it. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and I hope to see you again soon. And thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Buddy.
Yeah,
Cheers.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.